friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
I feel like 99% of my job was not teaching dance. It was counseling kids and helping them get through things.
Welcome back to our Positive Team Culture series. Today is part 3, and I am so excited and honored to be joined by my former dance team director, Betsy Heathcock. If you're just joining us, throughout the month of November, we've been doing a mini-series focused on developing and cultivating a positive team culture. We're looking at what it looks like to have a healthy and thriving team. While the context of this series is dance team culture, the content is applicable no matter what you're a part of. Most likely, all of us are in some sort of team environment or a group environment where we're dealing with different relationship dynamics. We're about halfway through this series, which means we're also only a few weeks away from my new book launching into the world, which is so exciting. Just to share a little bit more about my book, it is called Healthy Relationships Equals Healthy Team: 10 Keys for Building Positive Dance Team Culture. My hope is that this book will be a great resource for coaches and directors to be able to use with their teams. And it's written in a really fun conversational style to start great conversations about having healthy relationships. I think one of the things I'm most excited about is the ripple effect that this could have, not only on your team, but for every single person on that team's future, including their family, their workplace, their friendships, bringing a positive impact to every single part of their lives. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be sharing more details about the launch date, as well as details about where you can find the book. Today, Betsy and I talk about what it looks like to intentionally develop a positive team culture and bringing light to those around us. Betsy shares about the power of empathy, some practical tips for being a safe person for students, and what it looks like to continue learning and growing as a leader. Betsy has been one of the most impactful mentors in my life, and I've seen her live out the things that she shares today for over a decade. I'll share more about Betsy's background when I introduce her during our conversation. She has been recognized by the Texas Dance Educators Association as the Dance Team Director of the Year, a Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, and also a member of their Hall of Fame. If you don't already know her, I'm so excited for you to get to know Betsy today. Enjoy my conversation with Betsy Heathcock. Well, this is such an honor and a privilege and so much fun to get to be here with you today, Betsy. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here with you. You're one of my favorite people of all times. So yeah,
thank
for
you.
sure.
That means the world. And I didn't say this earlier, but I'm getting over a little allergies,
Probably.
sinus, something.
No worries.
So if I sound a little congested, that's why.
No worries. No worries.
But I brought my tea, so hopefully that will help throughout the conversation. Well, I am so excited to introduce Betsy to all of you that are listening. Betsy Heathcock is, first and foremost, she was my dance team director in high school. So that's the main thing, I guess, that's close to my heart. But she has been actively involved in dance education since 1978. So that's over 4 decades now?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is incredible. And she has taught and directed at high schools such as Dulles High School, Memorial High School, and also Austin High School and Fort Bend ISD, which is where I attended. And she has done so many incredible things. I encourage everyone to check out her full bio, but a few highlights include helping to implement the Texas State Dance Assessment, which is called DEAL, or the Dance Educators Assessment of Learning, and also continues to be kind of the coordinator for that assessment. She also has been named part of the Hall of Fame for the Texas Dance Educators Association, as well as a Lifetime Achievement Award recipient and Dance Team Director of the Year in 1995. So just incredible accolades over the years that are well deserved. And there's so much more there, including years and years of work for MA dance camps and competitions and helping be clinic director. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those things and those experiences that relate really well to what we're talking about today. But I'm just so honored to have you here, Betsy. Thank you for taking this time to share your wisdom and your just experience with us.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you as well, Rachel, because I mean, It's been amazing for me to see you grow as not only a dancer, but just as a director and a true leader in the dance world. And,
Thank you.
you fill my heart because I see that you continue to make things grow within the industry. And I think that's so important, especially since the dance realm has grown so much, especially in the dance team world. So
yes, thank you so much. That means the world to me. And I think what's really fun about this month, that it'll be airing in November, but the month of November on the podcast is going to be all about building positive team culture and what that looks like, how we can, as directors, coaches, and just people involved in that world, can really help to set the tone for the students and create a positive environment and experience. So first off, I thought it would be fun to ask you, what do you think is the value of being part of a team?
Well, I feel like when you're a part of a team, it's like you have like an extended family.
Yeah.
And so many young women and men are not afforded the opportunity to be a part of groups that are many times large, like dance team can be. And for me, watching my dancers through their years in high school, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 years in the dance program, and then watching to see what they do out in the real world, but also that they keep those connections with each other, and they're still there today. It never goes away. So that sense of family and camaraderie within the group is just so important for all of them, because once you get out into the real world and you go and get a job, it's not the same. It's not that same environment all the time. And I have students that come back to me and reach out to me and say, yeah, we did all these things and I learned this stuff about teamwork, but that's not what's happening here in this environment. What do I need to do to make that happen? I said, well, you just need to be yourself, reach out and try and create that atmosphere as much as you can as an individual.
Right.
And then that family aspect will hopefully evolve through time. But yeah, I just think it's important that as individuals, it doesn't matter what you're involved in, whether it's dance team or whether it's band, whether it's student council or some of the academic groups, having that sense of unity within that team environment, it just sets you up for success.
Right.
And you and I both know that it's not all like rosy and happy all the time. There are those challenging times, but that's part of the process.
Yes.
And if you don't have that process, then how are they going to learn what they need to do in the real world? So I think the sense of family and getting to know other people outside your comfort zone.
Ooh, that's so good. Yeah.
People that you might not know individually, but then you're put in a position where you're forced to break up into groups where you don't know somebody. And it kind of opens that door and you find out about people that maybe you wouldn't know. Like how many people did you connect with that you would not have connected with had you not been on a team?
Oh, so many. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And this same environment, if you're in a dance studio, it's not any different. You're going to be put in with people that, first of all, are going to be competitive with you. And how are you going to work with that relationship? And I think that's a part of it too. You have to learn to give and take, and being a part of that, and just the positive relationships that you're going to form. And like I said, take with you for the rest of your life.
Yes. So well said. Yeah. Yes. I think
thank you.
That's such a huge gift that we have been given, those of us that have had that opportunity to be part of a team. And like you said, this can apply in so many scenarios, not just in dance, but
absolutely.
That's such a valuable part of it. And I'm curious, what do you think helps to build a positive team culture? And I'm kind of putting two things together. So what helps build a positive team culture, and why does it matter that we are intentional about creating a positive team culture?
Well, I think that with a positive team culture, first of all, it's very hard to develop that. It comes from your leadership, like your director or directors.
Right.
If we're positive on a daily basis and find the good as opposed to focusing on those things that are really challenging us, like find the good in everything. It's like when we're creating choreography and people are sharing and somebody presents an idea that maybe that we didn't think was strong enough, you accept that and say, thank you, that was amazing. So maybe we can try that and go to this.
Right.
Always being accepting of what's being said to you, but also understanding that if you constantly are giving that negative, and deleting what the positive should be, then the environment's going to be very down and not productive. And that's the hardest thing to do, though, is to keep that happy face all the time.
Right.
And be super forward thinking and encouraging and all of that. But I think with my demeanor was really hard to read because I was very serious a lot of the time. But I feel like my students always understood why I was that way, but I was always a positive force for them. I never tore them down. At the beginning, when I started out and I was very young, I was not a great leader. I had to learn to be a good leader and director. So you learn through that experience. Like your personality is just positive all the time. And for me, that was really hard because I was always brought up in groups that were constantly telling me what I did wrong.
Oh, yeah.
When you feel that, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm drowning here. Right. I can't get to the top. And you have to be that positive force. If you are not the positive force, then they're going to pick up on that and they're not going to excel the way you want them to and succeed.
Right.
But it's a learning process that it took me years. I mean, it took decades to understand that happy medium and to always be that kind of like somebody that people looked up to and respected.
Right.
But they also knew that I had a huge heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's another big thing is that you have that heart, that openness, and that positivity constantly throughout your career.
Yes.
You want to always have that.
Yeah. So, it's definitely striking that balance.
Even with your challenging times, I know you had those as a director too. I mean, and people can like tear you down. And what are you going to do to pick yourself back up? Figuring out what that happy medium is.
For sure.
So
yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I think we always knew that you had our back, you were advocating for us, and that we could always come to you if we needed to, even though you were pushing us and, helping us to reach for our goals and be excellent. But we knew that your door was always open, kind of a situation. So.
Right. I tried.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah. None of us are perfect, but it was definitely a great
Exactly. Yeah. And you do that. And I did that probably even more so for my dance students, because they were many times feeling like, they didn't have that person that they could really, if they didn't have a great home life, they needed that person. And for a lot of my kids that I had, I latched onto them to keep them lifted as much as I could. And I knew things were not good.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So good. And I think really important for educators when you think about the difference that you can make in the life of one student, just by being that person that actually sees them.
Right.
And cares to ask how they're doing,
Absolutely.
So I love one of the things that we had kind of gone back and forth a little bit before this conversation today. One thing that you mentioned that I loved was the idea of a team or a group of people finding their unified heartbeat and what that looks like on that team. So I'm curious, how do you feel like a team can find that unified heartbeat together?
I thought about that a lot too, just recently, because obviously choreography is a process. And I think one thing that was unique to us was the fact that we engaged our whole team in the creative process.
Yeah, that was so cool. It definitely shaped us a lot.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it made you all challenge yourselves and grow not only as dancers, but as choreographers, and helping, you understand what the process is and what it takes to get there. I think the most important thing with all of that was the fact that we created together, we manipulated it all together. But I think the heartbeat came when we constantly just worked together as a team and discussed what we wanted the overall message to be in each piece. And the evolution of it from day one, when we just started throwing things together and saying, okay, you go here and create this 8 count and you create this. And I gave you a recipe and you had to think about that and incorporate that. But the evolution of all of it from the beginning and watching it grow and watching you all grow together is what created that final, like, true unique heartbeat of the entire piece or pieces. And I'm just going to say this, your group, your year, your senior year, I mean, the heartbeat kind of took a while to mold and happen. But once it all came to fruition and y'all came together with it, it was like so emotional. And it was so heartfelt and it was so real. And all of you made that happen. It wasn't us. Yes, we direct you, we give you guidance, we did all of that, but it was you as dancers realizing how important each of you were to everything that you created. And I think that's for any team, whether you're a super strong team or a team that is a little weaker, you still, in anything that you do, whether it's, it doesn't matter what level it's at, it's just learning to kind of almost think as one, and then the heartbeat is one. And then the evolution is just phenomenal. I mean, and those are and for me, like when you performed, I could literally it was like you took over my whole being, and the end result was just phenomenal. I got that yesterday again when I was just watching some old videos. I was like, oh, that's how that feeling is. Yes. And you can't explain that feeling. And you had it, I'm sure, as a director too, when your group performed.
Yeah, for sure.
It just doesn't get any better than that. It filled our hearts and souls every time something like that happened. And to watch the evolution, I think the evolution is a huge part of it.
Yes.
I said that way too many times, but it's truly the end result.
Yeah, that you've seen how far it's come, and
right,
the kind of layers and the depth of meaning that gets built over time with that group of people. Yeah, for sure. One thing that I think back on as part of the team under your direction was, we did do a lot of kind of circling up or, talking, like you said, about what is the purpose behind this? What is our why, for this piece? Or maybe there was some sort of drama happening. And it's like, okay, we need to have almost like a family meeting, like a team meeting. And I realized I definitely utilized that a lot myself as a director, having those moments of circling up and kind of coming back to that. We're a family, we're here, we're in this together. How can we work through this in a positive way? So I'm curious your thoughts on the power of using circles in a team.
First of all, yes, it was a lot of times when we had been going, you just go, and then it just kind of hits like a brick wall. And that's when we would do the circle talks. I feel like a lot of times people internalized their emotions. And if they had a conflict or didn't agree with something that was being done or just weren't comfortable in the whole environment, it gave them a chance to have a voice and for it to be heard. And if you remember, every single person got to say something. And it was a little different each time. We'd like you to pick somebody across the circle from you or someone else and say something positive about them. And I think those times, the impact it had on the individuals was so heartfelt and, again, emotional for that person because they never realized that person thought that way about them. And a lot of times we just think it's work. And you got to have that downtime, and you have to have that time for each other because you don't know what's going on in their academic life, in their home life, or even in the environment of the dance team, because many times it was click, 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 click. And I always tried to avoid the clicks because I just felt like it just was like that heavy weight just pulling us down every time we turned around. So once we got into the circle and shared the things that were really like pulling us apart, it gave us a chance to kind of, reconnect and make it a very positive environment. So, I mean, that was the main purpose of it. And it was very emotional, not even just for the dancers, but for us. And we even did it. I don't know if you remember, but we did it during Rockathon because we had been together for, and people are like, what is Rockathon? It was, to me, that was the first time as a team that we got to really be open with each other and get to know each other, because it had been work for 4 weeks. And now we get to do something that's fun. Mm-hmm. And I think for some people, it was like, okay, this is what it's all about. It's not just about work. It's about connecting with each other, supporting each other, and lifting each other up. So that was, to me, that was the main purpose. And I know a lot of teams do that frequently, but it's hard to find the time to do it because you always want everything to be perfect.
Right. So, I think seeing the value in it helps you to take that time that it absolutely really, does require. And I love that it was a thread throughout the whole experience. We would end the year with our senior circle before spring show, which was always really a special time. And I brought that in with my team as well, because I just thought it was a really sweet way to sort of cap off the year, But you're right. It helps people see each other in a different light. And that's actually the perfect sort of segue into the idea of empathy.
Right.
Because I think when you hear other people's perspective, you start to see, oh, this is what they're carrying, what they're dealing with, and we'll never fully understand what another person is going through. But I think when we can step into that person's shoes, it's so powerful. And I would love to hear your thoughts on empathy and why empathy is such a powerful force in a team environment.
Right. As a director, one of the hardest things a lot of times is you have to realize you have to listen.
Ooh.
You have to listen to everything, because that's the only way that you're going to understand, how that person is feeling. And if you don't have that open, line of communication, and not only listening when people are verbalizing, but listening when no one is speaking.
Ooh, yeah.
When no one is talking, and like looking around the room, and kind of you're like realizing that there are things going on, even with nothing being said, just looking at their body language, their facial expression, the way they are standing, if they're, kind of blocking everybody out, you kind of put yourself in their position and try and think, well, what's going on there? You have to be really aware of things that are really laying heavy on people, and put yourself in that position. Mm-hmm. It could be, oh, I didn't make a dance. Of course, that environment is not a good environment for that person, because that's why I deleted that aspect of trying out for pieces, because I could see how it impacted that child or children or dancers. And it wasn't a positive thing. I get it. Competitive. You want everybody to be perfect. But if you don't give them an opportunity to try and perform, then you're hurting them more than you're helping them. So that's why I always allowed everybody to be in every feature that we ever did on the field, always. Now, band show was different because we only had a certain number, but that I always worked everybody in at some point. So yeah, I just think that a lot of times, like we don't understand how that person really feels. Then you have to put yourself in that position.
For sure.
Being that positive force for them and reaching out to them, because a lot of times people will go, oh yeah, they're having a bad day. Let's just leave them alone. Well, you don't know what that day is like. And how would you feel if they just ignored you? So I think just going through that portion of it and pulling people back in and taking time in my office and shutting the door and saying, what's going on?
Yeah.
I'm here for you. And there's a lot of people that don't feel comfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel like 99% of my job was not teaching dance. It was counseling kids and helping them get through things.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
And I love that portion of it because, I wish somebody had done that for me when I was growing up, because I was always put in those leadership positions and never had a chance just to be that secondary person, which was hard for me.
Yeah.
So
that's so good. I think that's a really, beautiful picture of what empathy looks like. And when you talked about that, that reminded me of just your heart for being, like you said, kind of that safe person for students. And I'm curious, do you have any practical tips for coaches, directors that are out there to build that sort of a safe relationship with students and kind of what that could look like to develop that over time?
Exactly. I think that, and we did this at one point, we had a suggestion box was one thing. I know that's super old and who does anything like handwritten anymore.
I think it can be
But,
very good.
if there was something that nobody felt like they could come, individually and ask about, it gives them a chance to kind of have that open door. And I've even done this at camps where they have, like, I'm one of my favorite ones is I gave them a card and I said, what is your biggest fear going into this year? And every student wrote it down. And then what happened was, I collected them and then we just did a deck of cards and we pulled them out individually. And we would have each person that picked out the question, read the question, and then the students would give us feedback on how they would deal with that particular fear.
Ooh.
And it led to from one thing to the next and the next. But that fear thing, especially for your rookies who have not been involved in a team that's big.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I've gotten myself into. What is all of this?
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming that first year.
That one. And then there's another one. A lot of times, like I said, we get busy in the day and you don't have time to really be encouraging. At one point, I had books that were on each girl's lockers and they were called yes books. And yes meant you're extra special.
Aww.
And so anybody could go up at any time and write a note to the person that book was on in their locker and just at any time randomly say, oh my gosh, you did a fabulous job today on that kick routine. You're just fabulous. Just things like that are encouraging, or if they see somebody's being challenged and giving them that help and that little extra push that they might need, encouraging them, but giving them critiques that are helpful.
Right. That's such a cool idea. I love that. Yeah, just those little things can make a huge impact.
Exactly. And it could just be a note. It doesn't even have to be in a book. It could be like, all of a sudden on their locker or put it in their bag. And it could be signed or it could be anonymous. I just think that, I think we've lost sight of a lot of that because of all the social media that we have.
Right.
I'm telling you, I still have millions of notes written to me by former students. And in fact, I was looking at a book that they did for my 25th year of teaching, and current students, past students from both teams, like all these amazing letters, just things that they wrote. And you just don't think about that. Do you remember when? And, that kind of stuff. But I think that anytime that you can have some type of interaction that is out of the dance realm, just to open up that wall so that they understand I do care. And this is going to help you. But that I really do. What's your biggest fear? That I've done that at quite a few different workshops that I've done.
Yeah. I think that's super powerful.
And also using, there's a lot of great videos. Simple Truths is a great avenue to go to for some inspirational videos. Cool. So I pulled from them before and just shown, I think I did it with your kids.
Yes, I remember that.
I just showed them like a small clip of part of it, and just super impactful. And then they had to discuss it. What does it mean? Like, why are these, the ducks in the water? Why is this happening? And, just silly things like that. But the things it pulls out of them is just very impactful.
Yes. Yeah, I can definitely link to those as well so people can check that out and
For
see.
sure.
Yeah, I know it's the little things. And thinking back, I'm like, I definitely didn't always do those things to the fullest that they could have been done. But even those small conversations and asking, what's one thing that I don't know about you that you may want me to know, and the things I would learn from that one question were pretty amazing. And I remember, I think it was Gina Tolar that I learned under for clinical teaching. And she was also your mentee, I guess, right?
She was one of my student teachers, but I also, back in the day, danced with her at a dance studio, Kathleen Parker Dance Studio. So I knew her from high school. I judged her in high school for tryouts, I think. And then, connected back with her after she was going through her student teaching. And she did an amazing job. Like, she was a sponge. Like, she wanted to learn.
I remember she did this thing that was, she would call it was sort of like speed dating, but you'd line the students up, they're facing one other person, and she would put like a little timer on that was maybe 30 seconds or a minute. And they had a minute to share, one thing that they appreciated about the other person and vice versa. And then it would rotate, and it would be maybe random, like this row, rotate 3 to your right, that kind of thing. So they didn't know who they were going to talk to next, but that always brought the biggest smiles and just the best reactions. Are so fun.
And some of your students don't speak ever.
Right.
Like, you don't know anything about them and they never say a word. They're there, you love them as a dancer because you want them to be quiet when they're learning, but you also want them to understand that we want to know them personally. You got to have that as well. So
yeah, for sure. So I love all of those tips and ideas. And I think those will be great for people to take, take something
and they can
try
make it their own, for sure. They can create their own questions, and they can do that periodically, like, just to keep that line of communication open. It doesn't just have to be, at the very beginning, what's your biggest fear?
Right.
Going into contest season, what is your biggest fear? It's going to be totally different than what it was at the very beginning. So even your officers and your seniors, wondering, how are they feeling like about this question? So anyway,
be very eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So kind of to shift gears slightly, just thinking about what it looks like to bring light to an environment or bring kind of that positivity. What would you say is sort of the importance of our mindset when it comes to how we approach the day, I guess? And then also, what are some thoughts on how we can bring light to the people around us? Because I feel like this is something that you do really well.
I think, honestly, going into each day is going to be totally different, but being organized about your thoughts and what you want to accomplish in that day, and always having, like, a real positive end result, which is that doesn't always happen. I feel like many times specific situations can be very daunting and can bring not only you down, but it brings the whole group down. So just finding a way to insert the positive and that light into everything that you're doing is super important. But understanding that it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be like, absolutely, that was the best you're ever going to do it. You're always going to be working to attain even more. And just staying present and understanding that, there are a lot of other factors that are coming into your rehearsals every day, whether it's just with dance or whether it was with the band. There's so many factors. You just figure the number of people that are out there. There's so many different things. But just being that encouragement to each person that's out there, finding the good in what is going on, even when things aren't really great. Like, sometimes it just doesn't look good, or, it's just not quite where you want it to be. But always saying, look how far you've come. And this is how you can make it even better. And let's keep working toward that. Because if you do that, then that's going to lift them up and give them that encouragement that they need. And they're going to perform better and they're going to have a better time. And it's going to be a positive experience. So I think it's just being real open to the understanding that there are a lot of obstacles that you will face. And sometimes you just have to literally push it aside and just make it a positive experience, even though it might be killing you inside because you're knowing that this is not going the way you want it to, but it's okay. Yeah. You're going to have that day. And then the next day will get better. And then you deal with things. There's so many things, not only just like, kids have academics and they have all kinds of, then you have injuries, you have illness. Yeah. I can't even imagine what it was like for you and Kayla going through the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't imagine having to do what you had to do and keeping that brilliant light up the entire time. I think it would have knocked me down to a point that I wouldn't be able to do that, but I guess I would have figured it out. But yeah. It would have taken a long time because, you need that face to face. You need that energy, and it's not the same as on a video screen.
No, not at all.
It's not. And even though, when we did that workshop for your girls and they were all there in their own little environment and I saw their comfort zone, I still knew that they needed to be a part to feel that unity and that strength and just determination, because you can't feel that over a video screen at all. Right. But I think it's a challenge, but to me, it was a challenge that I loved. I loved the fact that it was going to be hard. I didn't like anything to be easy. And
that's a good industry to be in then.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be hard.
Challenges.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges, but I hope that I helped guide them to that brilliance that they deserve to have. And I think that obviously in performance or whatever, that's when that all came to fruition.
Right. So. Yes. And speaking of the pandemic, that kind of makes me think about the fact that I feel like in this season of the world, I don't know, just the state that we're in, there's so much coming at everyone. And I think there has been a lot of heaviness and anxiety, depression, different things like that. And just what a powerful thing to be able to be a light for somebody, one day at a time, one moment at a time, even if it's something that seems so small, but it could be that one smile. It was interesting seeing, notes as I was leaving Dulles at the end of last year. Ben kind of pointed this out, actually. My husband, Ben, he was saying, when you read the notes, it's the thing that stands out the most is that they value your smile, and kind of the light that you brought when they saw you, when they came to class or rehearsal or that kind of thing. And it was wasn't even so much about winning an award or.
Yeah, it's not about that.
It's that relationship.
Right. That relationship. It's never about the awards at all. I mean, and it's so funny because I was working, I haven't done a resume in I don't know, a whole lot since I interviewed for the Austin job. That was back in 95. That's the last time I did a resume, like a regular resume.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't remember. I remember we did things, but and accomplished all these things, but I couldn't tell you a year, a date, a time that I could tell you what that performance looked and felt like. I could tell you how that felt, but I couldn't tell you any of that information because it just doesn't matter. Those years and the accolade, it doesn't make a difference. It really does.
It fades. Exactly.
Right. It does fade. It's just those relationships. I think the positivity part of it and how you feel, the feeling you get.
How people make you feel, for sure. I love that quote. I think it's Maya Angelou who talks about, people forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And
exactly. That's really an impactful quote. That really is. That's amazing. Yeah,
for sure. So speaking of, what was maybe one of the most impactful moments for you as a director?
Okay. So this is a hard one because I literally kind of have three. So is that okay?
That's great.
Okay. So we had the opportunity, obviously, to be a part of the band. And, it was just different when you have that many people that are so cohesive and like work so well and work so hard to achieve something. It just fills your heart and soul like there's no tomorrow. So I remember the very first time we went to Grand Nationals as a band and dance team.
Yeah.
And first of all, you're in this huge stadium, and we did a rehearsal in like this, it's just like a big old ballroom, kind of like more, not a ballroom such, but like an exhibit hall environment. And then we walked out as a band and we had to go into this like tunnel, and it was an airlock because it was literally, the stadium was something that was inflated. So you had to go through the airlock. So we were in this tight little airlock.
Yeah.
And the whole band, like 350 kids are in there with all of us. And then all of a sudden the airlock pops up the door and you start walking out. And I just felt like I still feel it right now. Like that feeling of being in that environment with all those amazing groups, and we're one of them.
Yeah.
Like we are one of them. And to do as well as we did, like it was our first time ever going, and we're in the top 12 and then we're in the top 5. Like that was unheard of. Nobody from Texas did this. So that was one of them. And I will never forget that as long as I live. And
yeah, that was so cool.
the second one was when I had the opportunity to be the choreographer for the Bands of America Rose Parade honor dance team.
Yes.
I did it 4 different times. It's a lot of work. I was by myself. I had a lot of angels in my group, but I also had other dancers. There were like 30 the first year. And I was all by myself doing all that, like 9 minutes of choreography, teaching it and everything. It was quite the undertaking.
Yes.
But coming off the bus and getting there in Pasadena, getting in line to go down that street, there's like, again, you can't even imagine it. Like it doesn't even seem like it could be real that, oh my gosh, I'm walking the parade route. These are my dancers. This is my choreography. They've worked so hard. And, that was another one that I will never have that feeling or experience again. But I'm so thankful I was given that opportunity and that they trusted me as a choreographer to do that.
Yes.
And then my last one is, well, it's kind of a sad story, but and you were a part of it as well, was when we found out that one of our dear angels, Tracy, passed, and we were all on our trip to Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
The care, like of course, the emotion, like nobody wanted to believe it, but the way it bonded that entire group, I have never seen anything. And that's what you call a true family. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And then we still had to go on and perform and do all of that. And then all the butterflies everywhere that kept landing on people. And she was everywhere, obviously on that field with us. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I think she gives me the strength that I need to get through every day. She does. Yeah. And, the anniversary was just a week or so ago, but she was the kindest child I ever had. She was there when my mom was in a bad accident in my office that day. And it's like, she was my angel on earth. Mm. And so just all the things that aligned and that I think about throughout that time, she never let a girl walk out of that dance room unless everything was resolved. She was the last person to leave every day. Mm. So it's like she had a purpose on earth and still has her purpose as she's in heaven, obviously. So yes. I know I went on too long about that.
No, those are all so good. Yeah, she definitely had a huge impact here and continues to,
right,
impact each of our lives, and just the memory of who she was and how she lived her life every single day, I think stuck with all of us that got to know her. So,
right. And those friendships are still like to this day. I mean, people that were on those teams with her, they still have groups of friends that get together every year and they go have a tea. There's one group, there's 15 of them that have a yearly tea that they go to. in
That's
like
amazing.
December. They get together and they do that, and they'll like, and it's fun to see them on Facebook too. So it just, it just shows you that once you're a part of a team, you're always a part of that team.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'd love to hear what is one of your, favorite parts of what you get to do now. So now I know you're going and doing consulting and workshops and choreography, working with, camps and things like that. So maybe what's one of the favorite parts of that?
Yeah. One of my favorite things, honestly, to do is I love to mentor. I love to mentor dance educators that are preparing, especially for competition season. And, they have their dances kind of put together, but they're just like, it's not what I really want. And what I love to do is go and help them realize how you can manipulate something to make it even more creative.
Right.
And so I literally will go out for a couple hours and they'll say, they'll go, they're all yours. And I'm like, that first of all makes me really feel good because, these students don't know me from anything, but just having the kids understand that, things can be more visual or more impactful just by switching the direction you're doing it or switching the level you're on or things like that. That was always one of my favorite things to do as a director. I love the fact that, again, like I said, you guys help create choreography, but then we help manipulate it and create how it was actually in the end.
Right.
I love mentoring directors. I even mentor individuals, like soloists will ask me, like, why am I not doing so well in finals or whatever? And I'm like, well, I was at the contest you were at, and these are the things that I saw just from a person not judging you, just a person that was there in the room. And I'll talk about the emotion and what is your storyline and how are you utilizing the floor? What's your connection with your audience? Things like that. So I'm not physically teaching them choreography.
Right.
I'm just helping them understand what it takes to help them get to that next level. And then the other thing I love to do is I love to work with groups. I love to work with whether it's directors. I just did a workshop with a group and did a whole deal assessment and helped them and actually made them physically move and play the different parts and understand what the experience will be like when they do deal. And then made them discuss their roles as directors and assistant directors and split them up. And then I worked with the middle school directors, helping them kind of plan through their year. And then I love doing officer workshops, whether it's a leadership workshop or just something fun or team workshops. Like I did a crafty thing with your kids a couple of years ago.
Yes, that was so fun.
Just to help them realize, it's not all about just technique and dance. It's the overall, what are you also doing for yourself? And I think a lot of times as directors, we're not taking time for ourselves. And then that's affecting what's happening in the environment and in the school setting.
Right.
And so that's another thing that I do. That's one thing I talk about a lot is encouraging them to take that time for their family, take that time for themselves, find that quiet space for you. And then it's going to reinvigorate you as you walk back into a room. I wish I had done that more. I really do, because I feel like I missed out on a lot because I didn't. So, but you learn from that. And you can just encourage others.
Right.
Honestly. So
you can help them.
I try
a different path. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Thank you for the mentor role that you've been in my life and continue to be. I know that makes a huge, huge difference. And you actually just kind of got into some of the next thing I was going to ask you. So that's perfect.
Okay.
Is normally at the end of these episodes, I like to ask, is there something on your heart you want to share with other artists? And so I kind of tweaked it for this topic, our little mini series.
Okay.
That if you had any encouragement you wanted to give other directors or coaches, and then also any encouragement you'd like to give dancers or students. Yeah. So any students that may be listening. So I love what you just said, as far as for directors or coaches, to take some time for themselves,
right,
with their families. Is there anything else you would add to that as well?
Yeah. As a director, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out not only to your fellow directors or older directors that are retired or your administration or other people. Don't be afraid to reach out to those people to get guidance.
Yes.
Not necessarily like what exactly you have to do. They will help you through whatever your question might be. So it will be your answer, not theirs. But I think just reaching out and not being afraid to ask questions, I think, and that's the one thing I noticed just recently when I did a workshop, they're like, we just never even thought about any of these things. We never realized like, and I just gave them a list, a simple list that said, think about this, think about this. They're like, now that we have this list, it's going to help us insert it into our curriculum or insert it into our daily routine so that things are a little bit easier. So directors just not being afraid to ask those questions.
So good.
I think some people like think, oh, well, I'm in this, I have to do this on my own. And sometimes you need to realize that maybe your director and assistant director situation isn't what it should be, and you don't know why. So if you reach out to other people that are in the same position you're in, then maybe you can get some guidance there.
Right. Yeah, because it's easy to start to feel isolated, or even maybe a sense of like, I should know this by now. So there's sort of that resistance to reaching out, but that's so, so true. I mean, I was like, ask all of the questions. That's the main way to survive.
Right. And
to thrive.
And understanding the roles. I mean, and sometimes it's hard if it's a new situation. You have to understand what that role is and what you can do to help each other instead of hindering each other. You want it to, and I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of assistant directors throughout the years. Many of them moved on to be head directors, but some of the environments were very challenging. And my husband at one point said to me, if you're not going to be happy in what you're doing, then you need to not do it anymore. Because he said every day, I remember it's like yesterday, because I'm still in the same house. I remember coming home and being so upset about everything that was happening. And then finally, once that changed, it was like I was a new person. But it's all a part of that learning curve.
Yes.
The older you get, the wiser you get, obviously. That's really cliche. I'm sorry, but it's true.
It is.
For dancers, I just had a couple notes. They just need to be passionate about everything that they do, like really enjoy it, but be passionate about it. Because if you just kind of go through the motions, it's not as impactful or meaningful. Work really hard all the time, even when it's hard to work hard, and enjoy every minute you have as a dancer, because you never know when it can be gone. So, I mean, I miss dance every day. I mean, if I could still just teach beginner dance every day, I would be happy, because I think that was honestly the younger ones that knew nothing were my favorite ones to teach, because they didn't know everything.
Yes.
They didn't say, oh, I already know how to do that. I learned that at studio or whatever. But they were just like an open book, and nothing was in it. And you let them like literally create their own story in dance. And I love that part of it. Yeah. I just think that those are things as far as dancers go. Just be passionate. I think that's my biggest word is to enjoy every second, because, when you're done from high school, or you're done, a lot of them, but a lot of them do go back and look for classes to take and still continue, or go into another realm. Like I've seen a lot of our dancers go into aerial and things like that, which is really amazing, or silks.
Yes.
And I have another friend of mine, because, it's so hard on her body. Now she does aerial where she's harnessed and she comes out a window in a building that's like 6 stories high. Yeah. She's amazing. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like 55 years old doing that. Like, but it was the pounding on her knees and ankles and everything being on the ground. She's still teaching dance, but just not performing professionally, except with the aerial group.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Things like that. There's other paths you can take if you want to continue with dance. It's not like you just have to stay on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Literally.
Right. Exactly.
Yes. Well, those are such good words of encouragement and wisdom. And one last question that I like to ask everyone just for fun is, what is one of your favorite things right now?
One of my favorite things right now is being able to kind of do things that fill my heart and soul in a different way. I like being very creative. I do a lot of crafty things and creative things like that, along with my husband. So to me, that is like our careers were aligned.
Yes, because he was
parallel.
a coach.
Right. He was a coach and I was a dance team director. But now, like, we work together in the creative process. He does all his custom woodworking. I do all my crafty things. And now we are actually in a new store down in the Montrose area. And it is a nonprofit store. So a lot of things they are doing is basically giving back to the community. So they have different events. So now we're getting involved with that as well. So I'm really excited about kind of adding that other layer to what we do.
That's so cool.
You know, we have to volunteer our time at the store, and it was great the other day we did it, and it was just real positive. And, you know, if he can help her make some things she needs, and I can do some workshops that are going to help something else. I mean, we want to give as much as we can, but it just, you know, it fills both our hearts, and it, you know, we're older now. It's not like we can do this forever, but we want to do it as long as we can.
Yeah. So. I think it's such a fun way to stay, like you said, creative and getting to work together and give back.
And it's very, honestly, it's like for me, and I don't like to use this word, but for me, it's like calming and it's therapy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, being creative and just being in that quiet realm and, you know, like it's just different. But then again, I still love the judging and the working different events and working camps. So don't think that I don't still love that.
Yeah.
This is just another layer on top of that.
Right. So. For sure. For sure. Well, this has been such a joy and such an honor to get to spend this time with you. It's fun. I love getting to spend time with you whenever I can, but this was fun to be able to share our conversation with others. And thank you for sharing your heart for teaching, for directing, and also just the wisdom that you've gained over your experience as a director. So I really appreciate you, and you're taking the time to do this. It's been so fun.
Well, I just appreciate you asking me, and hopefully I sounded okay.
Yes, for sure. So many good nuggets of wisdom and things that people can take away, you know, and implement, which is what it's all about, I feel like. So actually, speaking of, is there a way that people could connect with you if they're interested in just having a conversation or possibly having you come work with their group? What's the best way to do that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Just have them contact me through my email, betsyheathcock1@gmail.com, or on my cell, which is 281-785-5437. And yeah, I'd love to, you know, I just love to work with different groups, and it makes me really, like I said, it fills my heart and soul. I still need that. I mean, I can't ever get away from that. If I'm still watching old videos, and there's obviously that need there, but, and also other things that I do in relating to that is many times people will send me videos of routines.
Oh yeah.
And I will literally type out, like, they're just creating their choreography for contest season and they need some feedback. So I can't physically be there. They'll send me their routine and I'll send them like 3 or 4 pages of notes of things that I think would help enhance or whatever. So, and I'm available to do that as well. Because sometimes getting different places at different times isn't always the easiest thing.
Right.
So
that's awesome. Well, that would be so great. So if anyone's out there and is looking for someone to do a workshop or give feedback,
right.
That
or
would
even
be
through
amazing.
Zoom, it could be done through Zoom. I could watch a rehearsal and just talk through a rehearsal. I know it's not the same as being there, but you know, it's just nice to have a different eye look at things sometimes, getting a different perspective on what is a judge looking for, or an adjudicator? What are they looking for specifically? And everyone is going to be different.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's perfect. So I'll definitely put that in the show notes. So if anyone's listening and didn't quite get that, you can check out the show notes and find all that information. So thank you so much again, Betsy. And I am just so grateful for you. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'm excited to see you again soon. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. Well, you have a great day as well.
I loved that conversation with Betsy and being reminded of the power of our words and the power of the influence that we have on those around us. If you're enjoying these episodes, I invite you to share this with a friend and to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed wherever you're listening. Next week, I'm joined by Lakeisha McGowan, who is currently the Assistant Director of Fine Arts in Katy ISD in the Houston area. She also worked for several years as a dance educator and dance team director, as well as the Executive Director of Contest for Crowd Pleasers Dance. So much goodness in store for you guys over the next couple of weeks as we continue our Positive Team Culture series. You can find all the links from each episode, the full show notes, and additional resources on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. Thank you so much to our patrons who are monthly supporters of the podcast as part of our Patreon community. If you're interested in learning more about how to support the show, you can go to creativeimpactpodcast.com/Patreon. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/Patreon. Thank you so much for joining us and for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Until next time, remember that you were designed to create. You were made to inspire. Continue living with purpose and making an impact. See you next week for part 4 of our Positive Team Culture series with Lakeisha McGowan.